My name is Kimberly Tucker, and I'm the Director of Marketing here at DSD, and I have the privilege of being your event host today, which means I will be monitoring the chat and any questions you have for the massive amount of content we plan to cover today. So please feel free to use that area of this GoToWebinar environment. There is questions and then chat. Either way, I will see them, and we really want to make this as valuable as possible and interactive with our talent here today. So please, I want to encourage you to use that. For our presenter today, we have Mary Mays, a senior consultant on the Sage 100 team here, and she is everything payroll. It is really exciting. She was the author of the 82-page guide you see on the right-hand side here that you should have received an email with this guide yesterday. If that did not get to you or you do not have it handy, it is located in the handouts area of this GoToWebinar environment for download. So please feel free to download it there. Or if you just can't find either, feel free to respond to either of the emails that we've sent over the course of the last couple weeks. We can get it for you directly. The agenda today should be pretty familiar to you all since you signed up for the course. We are in the welcome right now, and then we have several areas to go through in the manual. Mary will reference the manual when we are hitting each of these agenda points, but it's really going to be very visuals in the product. So hopefully you have your Sage product up as well, so you can follow along on both of those resources. And throughout this agenda, we will have time to kind of pause and answer any questions. So please, again, feel free to use that chat. If something occurs to you mid-sentence of Mary, put it in the chat and we'll address it hopefully in a couple breaks throughout the sections of the course. And then we will have a full and interactive Q&A at the end, 90 minutes here. So let's get started. Just 3 reminders. Again, grab the guide however way you'd like, ask questions as they arise. And finally, don't worry if you do get pulled away in the next 90 minutes. This session is being recorded and we will distribute both within the next 24 hours. So just take all those and we'll go ahead and get started. So Mary, are you ready for us?
Yes.
Perfect. I will pass you presenter rights.
Right. I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yep, we got it.
I'm showing the DSD screen on our payroll release notes. And I think the first topic I'm going to cover is the version requirements. Because this year in 2022, the government has made some changes and to both the W-2s and to 1099s that require Sage to release a payroll update for payroll and an IRD for the 1099s. And in your handout, we have the information for both the IRD and the payroll because probably if you get these installed, we will install both of them. If you process both 1099s and payroll, we'll install them at the same time. So it lists the versions that you have to be on in order to have to be able to install the IRD, and those are 2020 product update 5 or 6, 2021 product update 3 to 5, and 2020 0 to product update 2, 2022 2. So if you don't have any of those, if you don't have those versions, you will have to upgrade to a compatible version, or you'll have to potentially do your 1099s outside of Sage. Now, the miscellaneous and the dividend 1099s are the ones that had the change. If you only are doing the NECs, it's possible you wouldn't need the IRD, so don't worry too much about it if that's the only kind of forms you do. The payroll update, you need that before you do W-2s. So Sage has released payroll, and I will scroll down here on this screen to show you the update schedule. They released it today, and the only program change is the default years to retain payroll history has been changed to 9. So if you set up a new company, it's going to change it to 9. It's not going to change any companies you already have. It's just for new companies, they've changed the default. And then they did some compliance changes as needed for tax year 2022. Atrix filed tax types and payroll versions and updated some payroll system files. And that's going to be, you don't have to do this before you do your year-end processing or your last payroll or anything like that, or before you do your first payroll. You just have to do it before you do your W-2s, before running your W-2s. So, payroll is kind of a separate install now. It's not, so you can be on a little bit older version of Sage in order to have to get the payroll. Even if you're on 2019, I believe the payroll version will install. Then 2019, is not a supported version anymore, because Sage only supports the 3 versions back. So there is a nice handy link on this page 3, the payroll tax changes for tax year 2023. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. This is inside Sage, but it's the help content that's online, and it shows you the different changes that have been made for the entire year so far. You can search for like federal, and you can see that they already changed that the base for Social Security. They've already made that change here for 2023. You can look back and see what changed for 2022. If you're interested, and like, again, you can search different states and see the different things, like Washington. I think they had some stuff, you can see all of the things. And then this talks about installing the tax updates, how you just go to the payroll utilities menu, payroll tax update. So there's nothing new about that, but I thought this was kind of handy, so I put a link to it on there so you can look. The Atrix year-end update will probably be released before the 20th, and that's the update for the forms that would have the 2022 W-2 forms. I know if you notice now, you don't have them yet. They may come later. It just depends on when Atrix gets the final copy from the IRS. And so we just put on page 3 your filing deadlines, pretty similar to what last year, the end of the month of January. And if you have to furnish ACA 1095-Cs to your employees, it's the same by the end of January. So I kind of already went over what's new in the 2023.0 release. The payroll tax update should be coming out sometime around the 22nd of the month, according to what Sage told us. And that's the update that if you go into payroll in your Sage, and when you go into anything, if you go into employee maintenance or anything, it will tell you you've got a tax update available. Do you want to install it? Or you can go to utilities and say payroll tax update. Oh, I forgot I had installed my IRD. Sorry about that. Let me go back here. Accept my end user. And it'll tell you that everyone has to be out of payroll, but it says the system is up to date as of December 15th. So even if I did proceed, it's going to say there's nothing to update. Okay, but you're going to want to, if you get prompted to install an update for the next few weeks, you're going to want to always install that. Now, it might not be something pertaining to your state, but just on the outside chance, I always tell people to always install the payroll tax update when prompted. So let's see here. On this page 4, we talk about the IRD, what it added. It's kind of some obscure stuff, so chances are, like I said, if you don't do miscellaneous, if you do miscellaneous, you probably need it. If you do dividend, you'll need it, but otherwise you won't need it. No major changes on the W-2 form, as referenced on page 5. The 2023 W-4 hasn't changed. You know, they did that big overhaul in 2020. And so I put a link to the tax withholding estimator for you on this page 5, because a lot of times employees have questions and they don't know what to do, and so you can direct them to that W-2 tax withholding estimator, and it pretty much walks you through whatever you need. It tells you, have your pay stubs ready. You'll need your tax return. I mean, it's nothing simple because it's the government. But if you go through this tax withholding, it will give your employee a chance to kind of calculate what the newer, since 2020, what kind of tax withholding they'll have. So then I think we've already talked about the minimum versions. We just kind of like to put it a couple of places just to make sure everybody knows about Sage has released some updates. They're going to have them before they start doing their processing. So I also want to mention that Microsoft Windows 8.1 support is ending in January of 2023. So Sage follows along with Microsoft on their operating system and workstation operating system supports. So Sage is going to drop Windows 8.1. Now that doesn't mean your Sage is going to stop working, but it means if there are problems down the road, Sage won't fix it. If you're running 8.1, they'll say, well, you have to upgrade your operating system on your workstation. So mostly your IT people should be keeping you guys up to date on your workstation. Windows 10 and Windows 11 are both supported for version 2020 and higher for Windows 11. I think Windows 10, it's supported for like 2019 or 2018 and higher because it came out quite a while ago. So so on page 6, I have helpful resources for year-end processing. So there's several things that will help you with Sage in general, okay, and year-end processing in particular. One of them is to have a Sage customer portal login, okay? And even if you don't have a Sage customer portal login, you can still get to the knowledge base. You just can't download any software updates, but you can search the knowledge base for any kind of questions. This is the Sage customer portal. And in here, on this document, I put down how you get your information if you want to find out how to sign up for the portal. You can, it kind of walks you through it. And if you don't have all the information, you can contact your DSD account manager. When you registered with Sage, when you first got Sage, they asked, well, who are the people that can get on the portal, right? And you guys, each customer gives names. Well, as personnel changes and stuff, sometimes those names aren't valid anymore. So you may have to update that. And your account manager can give you a form that you have to fill out for Sage and then send it in to them, and then they'll put your name in there, and then you'll be able to create your own login, username and password and stuff. So then I also give you the support phone number, because everyone that has support with Sage, that is on Sage subscription and maintenance, they should get, most people, I think if they're on I can't remember their exact plans, but you get at least 5 support cases a year from Sage directly if you want to contact Sage directly. Now, sometimes it's easier to contact DSD because we're more familiar with your system and your processes, and maybe you've been working with a technician for a while. And but sometimes if you can't get a hold of anybody and you're in dire straits, you can call Sage and they can help you. I also have on page 7 several other resources. Sage University, that's a great resource for all kinds of different training, videos. Some of things are free, some things you have to pay for, and it will tell you, and it's a different account that you set up. You can use the same credentials if you want to create your account, but it's a different, if you go to Sage U, and I put the link on this page, you can then create your account to Sage University. And then Sage City is another helpful website that Sage has for kind of end user support. It's kind of like a forum, and they have a year-end center. And it's another login that you have to create, right? You have to create another account. Mine is different for Sage City because I created it a long time ago, but you can see that there's all different kinds of groups and blogs and the town hall. And this page I'm on right now happens to be the year-end support center, and it has facts and stuff. Now, some of these things haven't always been, they're not as up to date as I would like to see. When I've looked at some of these, some of them still reference 2021. They haven't gotten all the 2022 stuff out there, but as they do get that out, these websites will be updated as Sage gets those updated. And so this other Sage documentation link is a good site to go to that has all the documentation. I think I put it on my list here somewhere. Maybe I didn't, I don't know. I'm going to click on it and have it open. This is the product documentation. It's again in the Sage kind of help universe that's online, and they have all the things about payroll. They don't have it updated yet for the one that just came out today. Oh, I guess they do. Here it is, 2.23. Perfect. They do have it updated. Wonderful. You've got Sage 2022 and on down, and it tells you that these are the retired versions. But this is kind of like a what's new, what's in the release, technical documents, checklists, mostly pertaining to upgrades and the new features and stuff. And then DSD has, we have a couple of resources on our website, one of which is under, when you go to DSD's website and you click on resources, you will see that the list of all of the things that are here. There is a Sage 100 year end, and that has all things year end. And then there is a special one for just Sage payroll, and that has we try to keep that up to date, all things payroll. So you can see that we have the 2.23 information and the hot fixes, which there aren't any right now, and any open issues. You can check back to see if there's anything. We try to keep these up to date. So this tells you what's new in this version. We already kind of went over it. That the release for Atrix and then the number of years of default history. So there are no legacy versions. I want to mention this. Anybody that's on 2017 or lower, there are no tax table updates. That has gone away and been gone for a couple years. The only way that you should be processing payroll is you should be on a version 2018 Sage and higher with payroll 2.x, we call it, but now it's 2.23 is the newest version. So that's really the only way you should be running your payroll. And you want to know what your version is. On page 8, I go over how to find your Sage version. You can do help and about, and this has what version you're running, Sage 100 standard, and the version of Sage you're running, and then also the payroll version. And it also tells you whether you're running the 32-bit version or the 64-bit version, because when they came out with Sage 2022, they released a 64-bit version, in addition to the 32-bit version that's been out there for all the years. So it's important when you do, when we're doing the installs, we need to know what we have in there. And if we have the 32-bit version and we have 64-bit Office, we would there's an ODBC that we have to install so that if you want to export to Excel, you can export to 64-bit Office. If you have the 64-bit version of Sage, you need to have 64-bit Office because there's no way to go backwards for that. So I talk about what's Sage 100, and you might have heard Sage 100C and Sage 100 Cloud. They thought that they were doing everybody a favor by naming it that because we have cloud connected components like the tax engine and the way that accounts receivable, credit card information isn't stored on your system anymore, it's stored in the cloud. Some of the older documentation still refers to Sage 100C rather than Sage 100 Cloud. And then it seems like they've kind of dropped the cloud out of the name completely. So when you go to Sage, you go to help about here, it just says Sage 100 standard. It doesn't say anything about C or cloud or anything like that. So I think they didn't want to get anybody confused with Sage Partner Cloud, which is a completely different hosted platform of Sage. So, and I'll go over what Sage Partner Cloud is just briefly. It is a hosted environment in Azure, Microsoft Azure. So Sage isn't installed on your network, on your computers at all. It's installed on the cloud. And this allows flexibility, security, it's cost effective, and backup, data backup, because there's a lot less IT knowledge that you have to have when you run Sage Partner Cloud. So many small companies are really enjoying having this partner cloud because all of this is taken care of. They no longer have to, pay for some outside IT people to help them with their servers and their backups and all of that. So it's a good way to leverage your dollars. And so I wanted to kind of go over the launcher views for those of you that maybe have recently upgraded or are going to upgrade. When they started with in 2021 and higher, they retired that classic view. So this is the view that you see on my screen is the view that you get, right? So there's web content and you have favorites. You can add things to favorites and then modules. And so the older view kind of was more of a task manager view. And so what I want to show you is on page 9 that is kind of only going to be for people that have multiple companies that change back and forth. Something that's handy for me because I'm always changing back to the different test companies I have to test different things is this change user settings. I just wanted you to be aware of it. If you check this retain module on company change box, it will, when you go from payroll in one company to payroll in another company, instead of taking you to library master module, it'll keep you in the payroll module. It's kind of helpful. And I kind of talk about the theme here, this theme code. This kind of changes a little bit of the look, but not really. Mostly you have classic and you have standard blue and standard green. So you can see if you change to standard, I'm going to change to standard blue so that maybe you can see a change here. And maybe I have to exit and go back in for that to happen. One moment, and I shall do it. You should see my little things change. Well, of course they haven't, but maybe because I've changed my theme a different way. And there are many different ways to do this. You've got the views, and so that's a way to change blue to green to black. A lot of people like that, the black and white one. So I just keep mine on the green because I'm kind of used to it. But we kind of talk about the different themes, and those of you that have multiple companies, if you want to enable company specific background colors, your theme here down at the bottom has to be classic on your change user settings in order to have those different colors. So if you wanted to have like one company be like their background colors be one color, and another company the background colors be another color, you can do that and I'll tell you how to do that. I also put on page 10 how to resolve issues with paperless office printing. Many of you guys use paperless office, and this is one of our #1 support questions that we get at DSD. People get an error when they're printing to paperless office, printer -30 or printer -41, and it has to do with the Sage PDF converter has kind of gotten corrupted, generally by a Windows update. So this walks you through reinstalling it. Now, if you don't have local admin access on your computer, you will have to have your IT admin log in for you and help you with that. So now we're going into the Payroll 2.x info and FAQs. We the last couple of years, we went over this pretty heavy because this was all new to everybody a couple of years ago, because they changed the way that they do it. I'm not going to go over this with a fine-tooth comb, but I left it in the manual for those of you that needed kind of a refresher on tax profiles and all that. But you know that when you set up different states, you have to create your tax profile in Payroll Setup, and you can create as many as you need. Most people just need one. And when we did the upgrade, part of that upgrade process is it saw what your tax profiles were, what your withholdings, what everybody had set up, and it asked as part of the upgrade, hey, we need to set up these states, or the states that we need to set up. So we would have talked to you about that and set that up at that time. So they also have this lives and works. So if people live in one state and work in another, there are some cities that straddle 2 states. So they have people that live in one state and work in another. So this walks you through over 11 and 12 how to set all that stuff up. And one of the newer things that Sage added to this tax profile screen in one of the later versions is a rates and limits little box here, and it kind of shows you what all the different rates are that are applicable as of this date, right? So there's really no other place to see some of this information except for this screen. And Sage is dedicated to keeping this updated and 100% correct at all times. So if you were to ever find that there was something wrong with a state tax code, sometimes it's the local codes. If you have local codes, because there's so many different local codes. If you find something that Sage isn't doing right, you need to call Sage and report it to them so that they can fix it, because they're committed to trying to keep this as up to date as possible. They, for sure, they're in very close communication with the federal government and with all the states to try to keep all their unemployments and all of that, those limits and stuff up to date. But some of those locals kind of maybe, if you find a local that isn't 100% right. But this is a good way to be able to see what's going on. And so I talked about that, how to get to that on page 12 or 13 maybe. There's also something added in the last, I think in 2021 version of payroll was this tax rule inquiry. They didn't used to have this, and so now you can look and see what certain specific taxes are applicable for which one I'm in Kansas, and so you can look in there, and this basically you can not create the log. Okay. Well, I apologize. I won't be able to show you this. I installed the 2.23.0 that just came out a few hours ago, and so maybe there's an issue with that. I might have to report that to Sage. But before I had that installed, I was able to do this without a problem. Let me just look and see. Maybe I don't want to include all. Maybe I can just include a couple. So I'm just going to say, it had everything included. So now I'm just going to put my regular rate wages here, and I'm just going to try it with that and see if that may be it. No, maybe I'm just not getting out to the internet right now. So, but hypothetically, actually, when this works, it will show you all of the taxability for your regular wages, and regular wages, of course, is pretty much taxed all the time. It's really important when you're looking at the different kinds of wages that maybe aren't 100% taxed, or especially deductions and stuff, and it'll show you all of that. And that's based on the tax profiles and the tax company tax groups and your tax profiles. And every time you do one of those payroll tax updates, if there are any new tax profile or earnings codes and deduction codes, tax statuses, those will come in. So, on page 14, I go over the 2020 big filing change status that changed. H has gone away, and MJ's been replaced by M's in most all the states. There's no more that tax calculation override. You used to be able to do that. You can't do that now. Sage wants you to match in Sage what is on the employee's W-4 form. Okay, that's the legal thing to do according to Sage. So if they started after 2020, they should have the new W-4 filled out with their specific requirements here. So I'll just pick my demo lady. And on my taxes tab, she's got MJ1. So, and that's what we're assuming. It's not up to you to interpret what the employee wants, right? There will be a W-4, and it will have all this stuff on there, and this is what the employee wants, right? So this is just saying that they've got other income, and this is their deductions and what have you, and so that determines what's withheld from their checks. It's a little more complicated than married in one or single in one, but the government likes to complicate things. But supposedly, if you do this correctly, you will be more on track to not owing any taxes, but you won't get a big refund either. So some of your employees may adjust it so that they get maybe more taxes withheld because they want to get a refund. But the goal to this whole deal is so that you are kind of square at the end of the year. You don't owe anything, you're not getting a huge refund. But some people, if they want to have more taxes withheld, you have this ability here to pick the additional tax here. You can add a % of taxable or add an amount, but you cannot say employee A wants always to have, $75 withheld from every check. You can't do that. You can get close to it with, playing around with the statuses and stuff, but you can't, there's no way to just say, I'm going to withhold $75. And Sage says you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't try to fudge this system by putting a whole bunch of exemptions and then additional tax or something. You should do it, match whatever the employee's W-4 says. So the company tax group is kind of where you maintain company-wide type settings here. And when you go look at it, if you click this, you'll see every single state and the federal. If you click that's the little lookup magnifying glass. If you click the little flashlight, you'll just see what you have set up. And this is the PR2 demo company. So they set up quite a few different tax jurisdictions because they wanted to try to allow us to kind of test all of the things here. So you see we have California, and this is where you put your company tax ID. And if you want to round your withholding tax, some companies like to do that. You can check the box. This is where you put your GL accounts. And this is your California training. This is a new, Sage will keep this up to date on the additional tab with anything different. So this is a newer tax. And then your tax rates, those are things that pertain specifically to your company, right? So you can see that on this example, 2017 is the last time I put in anything for unemployment. So everything since 1/1 of 2017 will be 3%, right? But it's up to you to go in here and put in your new rate that maybe you got a letter or whatever, and so you're going to put in, and I got it's a 2.75 now. So you just put that in based on the letter you get from your state, or maybe you look it up online. They used to send letters out. Now probably they just email you, but I don't get notices anymore, so I don't know how they do it. But every state will notify you about what that is. And Sage is keeping up with the rate, the amount of the how when it stops calculating it. That's not something you need to put in. You just have to put in your percentage, okay? And that's something you can do this at any time as soon as you get your letter, as long as you put when it's effective. And most times it'll be effective 1/1. Every so often they'll make a change that's effective, like for Kansas, July is like our fiscal year for the state. So sometimes they'll make a change that's effective in July. So you go in here and put July. So anything that I did, if I had more 2022 payrolls to do, it will still use the 3% that is in effect here because I haven't changed it. And it'll start using 275 if I do any payrolls for 2023, because it's all date driven now. So you don't have to worry about waiting and putting it in right at the exact minute. So we talk about emailing employee direct deposit stubs. There's kind of a little quirk about Sage that if in your company maintenance, if you don't have an email address here, when you try to go and email out of the employee file to email their password, you might get an error message. So we always tell everybody to put that email address in here. Just like most people, some people do a do not reply at, some people have specific people, some people have a payroll at or whatever. Just put the email in here, and it seems to prevent that error message if you're trying to go in to employee maintenance and email somebody their password. And we kind of give you a little deduction rule, kind of a cheat sheet. When they first started this new program a couple years ago, or maybe 4 years ago, we went through and we did dummy payrolls just to make sure how these things are being affected, just to make sure that we understood what was happening. And back in the old payroll, when you set up an earnings code or a deduction code, you were able to control what was taxable and what was not taxable. But what Sage, I guess, kind of determined is that people were not checking these things correctly sometimes, and so things weren't getting taxed correctly. So they decided to do it in the cloud and handle it themselves. So they made these tax rules, and that determines what's taxable and not taxable. So we have these little, for the deductions, it's taxes are reduced, right? They're reduced, yes, or they're not reduced, depending on these different deductions. So some they're reduced for federal, FWT is federal withholding tax, and then Social Security, Medicare, unemployment. And this is on page 17. And then the earnings codes are kind of the same thing, only it's taxes calculated, yes or no. So they're calculated. You can see regular wages calculated all the time. There's an overtime wages calculated all the time. There's some different things like group term life not subject to withholding, but it is subject to unemployment. All of these things go into when you set up your earnings codes and your deduction codes, how you want these things to be taxed. So you have to kind of know and pay close attention to these things. You can also do that tax rule inquiry to determine it. It gives you the same information. I'm sure that I'm probably just having an issue with my computer and just updating that, but that should work and give you the same, very similar information. You get kind of a little thing that says, yes, it's taxing, it is taxable, or no, it's not taxable. So you can look at it. So on page 19, I go over again about payroll utilities and the tax update and how you should definitely make sure that you do all of those. And then every time you do a payroll tax update, it's always a good idea to do this status check, payroll status check. And you can see, you just click on it and you just run it, and it tells you whether you've got errors or not. Warnings are okay. Warnings generally mean I don't have all the GL codes set up in all the boxes in my company tax groups. And sometimes that's correct because some states don't have an employee side of a tax, and some states do. And so that might not be filled out for your state, and that's correct. But you can see here, the red arrow, it's going to tell me if you click on it, employee has no direct deposit account. So that's just kind of a good way for you to check it periodically. And if you click on it and click OK, oh, wait a minute, let me double click on that. It'll take me to employee maintenance, and I can go in and I can go to my direct deposit, and I could put in my direct deposit account for my demo lady, but I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to leave it alone. Sometimes you might see an error under the tax calc service right up here. That would require a fix. And I put something on, and tax, not the tax calc service, I'm sorry, the tax profiles. If you see an error on the tax calc service, run it again, because an internet interruption can cause that to have a problem. So if I'm having a problem with my internet, I'm going to get fails on my tax calc service. But on the tax profiles, if you ever see errors like that, you click on it, just like you click on the employees, and you get to the screen that's shown on page 21, and it'll say tax profiles not current with CLAD data. And so what that means is they've added something or subtracted something to this specific state, and you need to click on it, and then there's that little hammer and screwdriver looking icon to the right. You click on that and it'll fix it, and you just click on each one of those and fix it until they're fixed. That's a rare occurrence. It only happens if you've set up a state and the state has gone in and added a completely different, a whole new tax, like California did with, they did a new tax. Washington's done that long-term care tax. When they add a whole new tax, sometimes these things have to be fixed. So I just kind of go through the different steps of making sure everything is proper. and set up correctly so that you don't have to worry that you're not going to get any errors when you're processing payroll. So on page 22, we kind of go over the newer things that have been added, probably since the last class. I think I wanted to go over the two new reports that they added because they're really valuable. I think they added these towards the end of last year, tax liability report and the tax history report. So the employer's expense summary is the employer's side of your payroll taxes. And usually before they added this tax liability report, the only way to get this report was when you had payroll, before you posted, you had to run the employer's expense summary to be able to see the taxes for the employer side broken down. Well, now they added the tax liability report. And so you can see either by check date range or by year and quarter. I'm just going to preview, and I've got federal, state, local, but you can uncheck anything. And you can see that this is the employer's side of it. And it's helpful to be able to like get a total for the quarter, right? You can kind of use this to tie your reports and stuff. And then the tax history report was added to help you reconcile. Maybe something's not coming out right, or maybe some of the new taxes or whatever. So you can check all, or you can uncheck specific things. Maybe just do uncheck everything and only look at federal and Social Security, or you can see that this can be very helpful. It's also by date and quarter or by check date range. And so maybe you just want to look at a specific check run to see what the taxes were for a specific tax. So that was added, and it's I'm not going to run it I'll do it by quarter. And this is more, you can do a summary report. If you check that and you print it, you get a summary of all of the things. Okay, so a couple of other things, they added some pension plan reports, which are helpful. Pension plan history and pension plan audit. They're just a little bit different ways of slicing and dicing your pension plans, your deductions. You can choose what you're wanting to see on here. You can have just pension plans, or you can run this report for health insurance if you wanted to see what, even though it says pension plan, it can be done for health insurance. It shows that information. You get to pick the deductions. And then the pension plan audit report. These are helpful for people that are needing to run reports for their auditors. And in 2.22, they started a new thing, the ability to allow, whoops, not there. I want to go to payroll data entry. Allow employees with other pay cycles. So what that means is, before, if I picked biweekly and I wanted to pay an employee that wasn't a biweekly employee, I couldn't. I had to create a whole new payroll to pay monthly people or semi-monthly. Or if my people were all biweekly, but I wanted to do a monthly commission, I'd have to do a separate payroll. Well, now you don't have to do that. You can click this and say, I'm going to allow employees with other pay cycles, so that I can pay both people that are weekly and people that are monthly in the same payroll. You still may want to split them up for your own purposes, but now you're able to do both of them. And here I talk about that, a link to the payroll tax guide. We already talked about that. That's that website that has all the information about the different, let's go here, the payroll tax changes. That's this here, the Sage Payroll Tax Update Guide. And I put a link here. It also talks about, it has a bunch of different links to documents. It has different links for the Sage City, Sage University, all of that kind of stuff. And that's on page 23. I talk about that. Another thing they added with Payroll 2.22 was the ability to create accounts payable invoices from payroll. If that is something you want to do, some people create invoices to pay their withholding taxes. And if you wanted to do that, you could integrate with accounts payable. Now this company, it's grayed out because this PR2 company doesn't have accounts payable set up in it. So of course it's grayed out. But if you had a company that had accounts payable, you could check that box and then you would have some setup information to put in here, and you would put in your, once you check that integration box, you get different things where you set up deductions and you can choose what vendor you're going to write the check to and that kind of stuff. And when you update the check register, you have to set everything up in this way. And when you update the check register, it'll create the invoices that you could then update in accounts payable and print the checks to pay your taxes. So there's if you want more information, you can go to the Sage Help, which is here. And you can search for set up, for example, taxes to create AP invoices. And it should take you to the screen. As you can see, it's spinning, but it doesn't find anything. Let's try it again. Okay, now you get a lot of things, but here it is. I must have not held my mouth right when I typed that in. So this gives you all the information you need about how to set it up. And Sage Help has really gotten a lot better about it. Really does have all of the things that you need to know. And anybody that doesn't know, when you're trying to do something, if you have a question on something inside Sage, anytime you see these little green question marks, if you click on that, usually has different little topics, and it will open certain things like set up direct deposit. It will open this Sage Help and take you straight to set up direct deposit. Any place you see those little green question marks, you can click on that to get that to open. So also, that what they added in 2.22.3, which is the release just before this last 2.23, is in the deduction. They added another calculation apparently to based on percentage of disposable wages, that down there, in case somebody needed that. So we have a bunch of frequently asked questions for the Payroll 2.0. We used to go over these a lot more rigorously because people had just upgraded a few years ago. Now people should be pretty familiar with what's replaced the perpetual history report, which is the check history report. And I like to mention this because there's so many ways to slice and dice this report. You can page break different ways. You can sort it different ways. Some people have a sort field for, I don't know, different divisions, different locations. And maybe you want to sort this report by location, and that's what you put in your sort field. You can do it by all these different date ranges, year and quarter, check date, pay period ending date, or by year to date. And then you can, depending on what you choose here, that changes these criteria. and you can print details or not. You can print earnings, you can just show the taxes, or you can print recaps. And if I just do recaps, maybe it won't be too big. I don't have a whole lot of payroll people, in here. So, but you can see you can get a nice list of all of the kind of a recap of each check. And this report is real helpful if somebody wants some kind of information. You can print it by employee and give it to them, like for employment verifications or whatever. We talked about how in the past on the benefits registers, now time off, they changed everything from benefit accrual, benefit this to time off. So that's Sage's new language now for instead of, they call it's time off maintenance, so that maybe you don't get it mixed up with 401k or insurance or whatever. So they just renamed it to time off. It works the same as it did before, but it's just called time off. And Sage did all the reports in landscape. We already talked about entering your state unemployment rate. That goes in the company tax group. Talk about the tax update messages. And on page 26, why is the percent grayed out on my check register accrual box? It's because it's assuming that if it doesn't cross over multiple accounting periods, you're not going to accrue anything. In the past, in older versions, you would put something in there even if it was in the same month. So I like to go over reversing a payroll check, because if you don't do it properly, sometimes Sage, the year-to-date information can get kind of messed up. So if you want to void a paycheck, void a check, I'm just going to set up this pay period here. You put in a person, and then you have this little blue reversal button, and then you can pick the checks, right? And these are all the checks this person has had over time, and I could pick one of them and reverse it. Now, we don't recommend you reverse anything outside of this current quarter, because it'll affect your 941, unless you're going to enter it again in the old quarter, because maybe they lost their check. There's no problem, they just lost their check and you have to reissue it. And so maybe they don't tell you and the quarter is closed. You can still do that. You can reverse it in the prior quarter, as long as when you enter the new, to get the new check, you have to write out use that same exact date, so then it doesn't affect your 941. And so you just would pick one of these, and as long as you select it, it's going to go automatically enter everything in there just as you need it, and you just accept it and print it and update it, and you still do the tax calculation just like you always did, but then you would post it all the way through and it'll reverse the check. Now I'm going to cancel it because I don't want to reverse the check, but I just wanted everybody to be aware of that little blue reversal button. Now, when you go in, you know that if you do a payroll and you haven't posted it, you can always clear it if you want to get rid of it. And that empties all the records in payroll data entry. And now it's just like I didn't start one at all. So, and I kind of listed all of those steps out on page 27. We talk about Sage Payroll now is all date driven. And so you can reverse a check in a prior quarter, and you can issue a check out of a future quarter. But should you do that? So if you are at the end of a quarter and you just haven't had a chance to close your quarter, then it's okay to go ahead and do another check run in the next quarter, because it's all date driven. And when you close your quarter, everything will be fine. But if it's at the end of the year, it is important that you close your year because of these three things that are listed on page 28. direct deposit amounts are reset at the end of the year. So if you do your first check run in 2023 without closing the year, and you've got direct deposit, the amount on your year-to-date amount's going to be wrong because it keeps a running total in a different bucket. Also, vacation and sick aren't reset if you're calendar year based. That's something that happens at year end. And deductions aren't reset. So you know every deduction you have how much per year that you can deduct. So that's why it's important to close your year before running your first payroll of 2023. And you can print W-2s anytime. You don't have to worry about my payroll is not, I closed my year, now I can't run W-2s. That's the old way. You can always run W-2s no matter what, whether you closed your year in quarters or not. And actually, I say close the year in payroll. It's really closing fourth quarter. It does a quarter end and year end processing at the same time. So do we have any questions about any of these things so far that you want to tell me about, Britt?
Yes, Mary, we
Kimberly,
do.
anything?
So they're a little more generic than anything, but we did get a couple. So first of all, the question is there a place to find the different debug codes if you come upon an error where the debug window is an option?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think I have anything like that. I do know that you can go to the Sage knowledge base, and you can enter your error message. Oh, let me get back here. And like they would have something in here. Let me make sure I'm on Sage 100. And like I'm trying to think of error 88 or something like that. That seems to be a common. You'll have like a lot of things. The more you enter, you'll see there's 116 different error 88s. Sometimes you can get a little more granular if the more you enter here, but for Sage knowledge base searches, less is more. So the less you enter, the more likely you're going to find a hit on something. But I don't have any kind of a printout of what the debug codes are. Maybe somebody at DSD does, but I don't.
Okay, great. Another one just asked for a little clarity around things we're reviewing, I guess. The question is, what is the difference between Sage, DSD, and Atrix?
Okay, so Sage is a company that writes the software. They started years and years and years ago, and they wrote some fixed asset software, and they've over time evolved into a big conglomerate, buying up all kinds of other softwares, including the old Mass 90, which is now Sage 100. And Sage owns a whole bunch of different products. And you can see here, they have Sage 50, Sage 300, 100, X3, Contractor, Construction. So they have a lot of different products, but they're the manufacturers of Sage 100. Okay, DSD is a reseller of Sage 100 because you can't just go out and buy Sage 100 on your own. They only sell it through the reseller channel because it's not as simple as Sage 50 like Peachtree, which is the old Peachtree, or QuickBooks. Those are fairly simple accounting systems to set up and maintain. They're made for owners of businesses to do because there's really no audit trails in those softwares as much as there is in Sage 100. Sage 100 was made for small to medium-sized businesses that needed more audit trail. And so DSD is a reseller, and we do all of the, we help you to make sure that you're always up to date, renewed, and we do your upgrades and then your support and stuff. And then Atrix is a company that Sage has, I don't know if they contract with them. I don't know that they own them, but they are a filing company. They do e-filing for all kinds of different softwares, okay? In the back end, you know, and so Atrix is who you would, when you do your e-filing, that's what you end up on Atrix's website. You create your account, and it goes by your business's EIN and your name and everything, and then that's how you file through them. So they're just like a contractor of Sage.
Right.
I hope that answers your question.
Yep, and I attempted via text, but one more just came through, and it may be quick. The question asks, can we close year end before the update?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, it does. The update has nothing to do with anything other than it needs to be done before running W-2s.
Gotcha.
So it's okay to close the year.
Perfect. Okay, let's move along. Thank you, Mary.
All right. Okay, so I'd like to talk about e-filing state unemployment reports. You can do that through Atrix, and they charge you a specific fee for that. So much per employee. A lot of people with large amounts of employees may want to purchase an enhancement from DSD. That DSD is written to do these state unemployment filings. And I put a link here. I'm going to click on it and make it go there. To see if your state is in here. These are like we've done them for quite a few states, right? I wouldn't say all states, but if your state's not listed, if you want it, you can request it be done. But basically, this would, I'll just click on the this one here, Alabama. You can look at all the versions and then the pricing, and this tells you how much it is. This is a subscription price, and I'm not the one that handles the actual purchasing. It would be your DSD account manager, and they would give you all the information about the pricing, whether it's this a yearly price, I think it is, but I'm not 100% sure, or if it's just a one-time price. I think it's a subscription, and there's so much you buy and then so much you pay each year, but they would give you all the information about that and how much it costs. This may be less expensive for you than to go through Atrix if you have a lot of employees, because you have to file this every quarter. They charge you so much per employee per quarter. So a lot of people with a large number of employees have found it more cost effective to get the DSD, and I wanted to mention that, okay? I also want to talk about your number of years to retain payroll history affects your how much history, any e-filing history or payroll history. And if you're terminated employees, if you terminate an employee, it won't drop off. If I have 4 years, it won't drop off until that guy's gone for 5 years. So most people want to keep 7 years of history. So all that means is your terminateds are just going to hang around until they're gone for 7 years, and then they'll drop off. So I would like to talk about the tax tables, how they're system-wide, and the tax table update. There's nothing you can do to enter your tax tables manually. That's all in the past, so there's nothing to be done. And on page 30, just kind of go over the FICA calculations. They stay the same at 7.65, and the Social Security rate of 6.2, Medicare is 1.45, but the FICA limit has gone up to 160,200. No limit to the 1.45 Medicare tax. And in addition, that additional 0.09% that applies to people that earn over 200 and 250 for married couples, 250,000. So Sage doesn't know that you're married. So it's going to start withholding the 0.09% after the employee reaches 200,000. And you'll have to file, when you file your taxes, you'll receive a refund. It'll be part of your refund process when you file your taxes to get that money back. But because Sage doesn't know what, how much your spouse is, if you guys are under 250 or not. We talk about you can't reverse payroll year-end processing. You could only restore it from a backup. So that's why it's important for people for you to check with your IT company or your IT people in-house and make sure that you are backing up your Sage. Make sure that that is getting backed up regularly and specifically at year end. And it might not be a bad idea to request that they do a backup and hang on to it so that it doesn't get overwritten in case you needed to do something. It's pretty rare that we've ever had to restore back from year end, but anyway. Payroll's always calendar year, even if your fiscal year for GL, payroll's still calendar year. And talk about the different 401k limits and the simple and all of that. I put some links in here to the IRS website for that. Always consult with your tax professional on all of these things. But this is what I could find on the web about what the limits were for everything. And again, we mentioned no legacy payroll, nothing's happening. And that, what the versions that are supported. And we explain on page 31 what that means for retired versions. And basically it means that they're not releasing the IRD for the AP 1099s for anything older than 2020. So here is a link to the Sage year-end checklist that is from Sage. They have, let's see, did I put it here somewhere? Here's our year-end resources here. This has all of the different links that you can go to for all the different things. Kind of a nice thing. One thing I didn't mention is the Sage Idea site. I meant to put this in the documentation somewhere and I didn't. So in Sage, on the, I'm not there. On the web content, no modules, no view. I don't know where it is. Help, there it is. On this help, so when you've got this help up here, and then you have, when you're on the home screen, you've got the help here. So this help is, and the Sage help about, that gives you your version. When you're on the home screen and you click help, that gives you that Sage web version of the help, right? So when you click on this screen, you get a whole bunch of things. And it also has links to enter a support ticket, the knowledge base, the online community, which is Sage City, Sage University, order checks and forms. It has all of these, and it also has this submit product idea. And that will require you, when you submit a product idea, to create an account for the idea site. But you can also just look through here and see if your idea is already there and vote for it. And this is where Sage gets some of their ideas on what to put in the next versions. So it's real important, if you see a feature that you really want or you think Sage should do, to either search for this idea and vote for it to see if it's already in there, or create an idea. And that's what, and like I said, the more people that vote for them, those are the things that get incorporated. So if you look at one, it'll tell you, and people talk about it. And once it's incorporated, for a while, they'll hang around there and they say, oh, this was added to product update 2 or whatever. So you can see the information. So I just wanted you to be aware of the Sage idea, submit a product idea. So the period end checklist has all the information about, and one of the things when you're closing your year, look at your history, because that's when it's going to clear off your history. So if you wanted to change your years to retain history, you would change that before you did your quarter end, year end. So you have your quarterly reports. You can, I don't know if you're aware, on your period end, you have the period end report selection. This is the reports that will print when you do your period end. If you say print reports, it will print all these reports. So if there are reports in here you don't want to print, you can go in here and you can highlight them, and you can click this red X to delete the row. And if there's reports you want to print, like maybe you want to print an employee listing with everything, you can always add it. And this is just and you can say, I want one copy of it, right? So that's something that I just wanted to mention so that you guys know that you can. And you can also say reset default reports. That puts all the default reports back that Sage thinks you should print. If they get messed up or you just don't know what the default reports are, you can just do that. And you can see it added some things. And that's when you go to your period end processing. With this, if this is checked, that's what will determine that those reports will print. And so you know how to reconcile, make sure your quarterly forms all match the totals for your W-2s. When we process your W-2s, that's always a good thing to make sure. Your year-to-date, quarter-to-date totals. I put a little link on here on page 32, about 10 minutes on reconciling. So it's just a good handy little tutorial. And then we talk about reporting on page 33, reporting employer-sponsored group health. Put information about that in case you needed it. On page 34, and I talk about how to copy a company, right? Some people might want to make a copy company just as a backup. If you're not sure your IT company has done a backup for you, you don't have time to ask them, whatever, you can make a copy company. So I put the steps here, and I just want to show you when you do the asterisk info. You can see that's your path. So for me, if I wanted to make a copy of my whole MAS 90 folder, I could just go here and make a copy of MAS 90. I'd have a whole copy of the whole thing. But if I wanted to make a copy of just my PR2 company, I would do that. Now I have all the steps here. I'm not going to go over that because I think I've talked about it before, but you always want to check to make sure you have enough room. So I went through the steps, and this is, assuming you don't have any IT staff on hand. Now, obviously, if you have IT people, you can say, hey, I want to make a copy of my company. Do I have enough room? And they'll tell you. But this talks about how you can make that copy company. And then this is just another little deal about what happens during year-end processing, just kind of more of a breakdown of the exact steps if you want to read on page 37. And then on page 38, we talk about some FAQs about where's the company name. That's in company maintenance, and the company tax ID is in company maintenance. It's also when you go to federal and state tax reporting, it will be here. I will show you. I'm just going to pick the 941. Now, this company has a lot of jurisdictions, tax jurisdictions. You probably won't see that many in there, but it'll go through here. Maybe. eventually. Oh, maybe I won't even walk me through it because I've already done all of the things for my. So this just straight up brings up my 941 because I already went through and updated all my different. Let me see about doing W-2s real quick. Oh, it's not done yet. Hang on. I'm trying to rush it here. So if I go and I do my W-2s, and notice I don't have 2022 W-2 forms yet because they're not ready yet. You get a little bit of a different look here. And so your dependent care benefits to print on your W-2, as long as you use the correct tax rule, it'll automatically pull it into your box 10 on your W-2s. And there we go. Atrix pretty much kind of walks you through the different things. I'm going to say just start processing my W-2s because you can come back and do this as many times as you want. There's nothing magic about this. If you use a single payroll, you're printing for one company, you say no to this message. If you have multiple Sage companies and you want to print combined W-2s for that, then you would answer no, but that's not, you would answer yes, but that's kind of not common. So here's all your different tax jurisdictions, and it has all the different account numbers. These are probably all fake numbers, you know, because this is a test company, but Atrix doesn't know what your tax number is, but it does know how it's supposed to be formatted. And if it's not formatted like this, when you click next, it's going to tell you, it's going to pop up a message. This one is a message about the Massachusetts has a tax family leave thing that's required in order to avoid rejections. So you need to add something. So I would go in here and add for MA, the family leave, and I'm just putting in a number here. I don't know, hopefully that it will take it. And then it's also saying something about the California. It's saying that you don't have the requirements here, so it's not going to display. Same thing for Massachusetts, and you would just have to know what your jurisdiction is. And I'm just going to, because I don't have like valid data, so I'm going to say no, I don't have anybody that's exempt. And if you have anybody who is elected to receive electronically, if there's a checkbox in Sage, if that's checked, you don't get to choose, it automatically checks it. So in this test company, they're all checked to receive electronic. That means they're not going to get a printed copy from Atrix. I'm going to say 941 here. And if I had third-party sick, I would check this box so that I could do my third-party sick. But I'm just going to do next. And then I'm going to truncate. It's always a good idea to truncate so that you don't have if somebody loses their W-2, they don't get any kind of identity theft. So I have some information about how to account for third-party sick in here. And so you can look at that. Since that's kind of a not a common thing, I'm not going to go over that other than to mention it, that you would check it on the box. But that's on page 40. And then we have different questions about why am I getting the error? Where's my retirement checkbox? You know, there's a retirement checkbox in employee maintenance. If you don't have that checked, it's not going to check it on the W-2. Let's see. I have what are the steps on page 42? What are the steps to reconcile? I referenced some Sage knowledge base articles. You can get on the knowledge base without logging in. Like I said, you can pull up any of the Sage knowledge base articles without having an account. Let's see, what did my thing do? Is it coming up or not? There it is. Okay, so when you do your W-2s, you're going to see this grid. Now, I had to go into this company and put addresses in here because Atrix when you click next, it checks each sides of these grids to make sure everything is right. Now, because I don't have addresses, see, it's say, you can't do this. You have to go back and correct because you don't have addresses. So I can't really show you how to file, you know, the W-2s in this company unless I put the addresses in for everybody. But basically it goes through and it checks, and you can see that these guys elected for electronic W-2, except not this person, so they get a paper copy. And if they had a retirement plan checked, these would be checked. If they had third party sick, it would be checked. And then it goes through next, and the next thing it checks is all of the totals, and it makes sure that your Social Security and all that adds up, basically. And it'll tell you if you don't. It'll also tell you if you have a state. Like there are so many errors in this test company because not everything is set up right. So I don't even want to go through the next step, because it'll prompt me for all these errors. Some of them you can continue without correcting, but other ones you cannot. You have to go back and correct. Some you can correct in the grid here, but if you correct it here, it does not correct it in Sage, right? So it's always better if there's some kind of tax thing wrong here that you go back and fix it in Sage rather than fix it in the grid just to get your W-2s out. You'd want your history to be right too. So and when you close out of this, it asks if you want to save your work in progress. I always say no here because I want to start fresh. Because if I wanted to like start over, I would import all those addresses and try to start over with my W-2s and print them. So these are on page 42. We talk about the reports that can be printed at any time. On page 43, more about reconciling 941s and your W-2s and your W-3s and some 941 instructions. On page 44, I went over the 2020 W-4 changes again, just if anybody needed a refresher. And then we start talking about the 1095s. That's only if you have more than 50 employees, you have to print that. And they call it a large applicable employer. And there is a report in Sage under your, somewhere here, where is it? ACA, large applicable employer report. And it will let you know if it tells you that this is just a tool, it's not legally binding. It gives you kind of a ballpark so that you know, are you going to have to do your ACAs? If you're close, then you really want to audit. Like here, I've only got 19. Average full-time equivalent is only 8 because, you know, obviously there's not actually years of payroll history in here. So, but it looks at, it does whatever the federal calculation to determine if you have 50 full and full-time equivalent employees. And if you do, and then if you say yes to this, it updates it to the ACA file. I'm going to say no because this company isn't going to file anything. You know, federal and state tax reporting on page 46, I go over how you may be prompted to update and that you'll need to do that before you get your new W-2 forms in there. You have to be an administrator locally in order to do that. So you might need your IT staff to help you. Then all the rest of this, it's just pretty much kind of questions. Maybe we should stop and I should see if there's any questions that anybody wants to ask before we are over.
Yes, thank you for respecting the 90 minutes because we did book that. So we did have a couple questions come through, but rest assured, anyone that does need to leave right now, this is again being recorded, so we will send out the full event But if you did want to stay and pose any extra questions, we're happy to go over with you all. So a couple that came through, Mary, the question is, can I work in the copied company? Can I run W-2s?
You should not, no, because if you do that, you won't have any history to be able to go back to. If you might get rid of your copy company. There is no real reason to do W-2s out of the copy company. The copy company would only be for a backup, just in case you needed to go back and look at something. But I would always recommend running W-2s out of the live company.
Okay, perfect. And another question asks, what is third-party sick pay?
What is third-party sick pay? That's if you have your insurance provider has paid, like for I don't know if it's short-term or long-term disability. They've paid your employee, and they withheld the employee side of the taxes, but they expect the employer to pay the employer side of the taxes. So your insurance company will let you know how much they paid, and then you have to kind of put it in and do kind of a dummy payroll where you put in the amount that they paid and then a deduction for the amount, simply to calculate the employer side of the taxes so that you can pay the employer taxes. So I wanted to show you about a question about this, the copy company versus the doing it in the live company. When you go to this existing reports, that's where it's going to show you all the years of W-2s that you printed. And you can go back in there and you can print a W-2 from an old, from an old copy. Now it's not going to, you can look it up anyway, and you can get the username and password when you file with Atrix. So this just shows you that there's a couple of 941s filed here because this company doesn't have true history, but you can, that's why you don't want to do it out of the copy company, because you wouldn't have this history here. You'd have to remember, oh, did I do it in the copy company? And maybe a few years from now, you want to get rid of that copy company. So anyway.
Sure. Okay, thanks for showing that. So in a great way, it's possible you've just been very thorough, and we've wrapped up all the questions that have come through. But did you have any closing thoughts or anything else that you feel is really important to cover today?
I think just read through the manual. I go over all of the Atrix pricing, and there's websites, links to the website to read more about Atrix. I really strongly advise everybody use the eFiling for W-2s because it is a very easy way. They will print them and mail them to all your employees and provide you with a website and a link if somebody loses it. Their W-2, you can give that employee the website and their username and password. Atrix provides to you, to the employer. You can give that to the employee and they can print their W-2, so you don't have to go dig up somebody's W-2 history. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, great. Well, I know we've gone over now, so what we'll do is, yes, thank you, Mary, so much for creating this in-depth manual and walking through a lot of the resources that we have here. Attendees, please feel free to reach out to your Sage 100 support team or, in general, your account manager if you have any questions or anything goes up sideways a little bit when you're processing your own payroll. With that, thank you again, Mary, for joining us, and thank you all for all your help. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.